Joining me on the news to discuss this is in relation to recent drug trafficking in Nigeria, as well as is of course the global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo from Indianapolis via Skype. Thank you very much for joining us at this point. Well, talking about the opioid incident now, more than 3,400 lawsuits have been brought by several states in the United States of America, and of course several local governments against companies accused of fueling opioid epidemic. In all of this, what's your thoughts?
Well, the lawsuit is just the start. That's not the end. Illicit drugs and drug trafficking is a big business in the underworld. It has killed about 450,000 people as a result of drug trafficking, which is all over the streets and which is very affordable because it's unsolicited. 450,000 lives in a space of 10 years, and that's a big deal. They operate to beat police detect, to beat the police from detecting, all of those synthetic drugs. They call them designer drugs, and it's actually man-made, and it just gets you to a point that you don't want to be at. It's very unfortunate that this is happening, but it has led, like I said, to many deaths, and also it has destroyed so many lives in the process. But the way forward is to make sure that the people behind this are brought to book.
How do you ensure that people behind this are brought to book when, when countries not seem to be working together to ensure that they stem the tide? For instance, in Nigeria, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has been on hand at every point to apprehend people who come into the country with drugs. But the case of different countries working together to stem this tide is a big issue.
Of course, it's definitely a mountain that has to be surmounted because it's really causing discomfort for the countries and individuals living in different countries. Let's go back to when the Purdue farmer, some few months ago, they were accused of mass producing painkillers, which are called opioids, and they kind of spread across the country. And as a matter of fact, some medical doctors were culpable because they were literally prescribing too much of opioids and these painkillers to their patients, and inadvertently, it was making them get addicted to it. They paid over $4.2 billion in settlements, and that's to tell you that not just the dark world that this is going on. Some big pharmaceutical companies are also involved in the huge cash of money going around as a result of this illicit and illicit drugs activities. Not only that, in other countries, some world presidents are also accused of facilitating all of this illicit drugs, and people of the underworld, some militants and militia groups. So it's a source of finance for them because they could sell this to the open market, which is sometimes you find them on the dark web. And that's where technology also comes in, and they will need a huge collaboration from international drug organizations to come together and look for ways to make sure that the synthetic designer drugs are taken off the street. It's not going to be a battle that's going to be easily won. It's a gradual process, and the big companies that are also facilitating all of this movement of drugs from one country to the other should also be taken to courts and make sure that there are punitive measures that's meted to them, so there could be more like a reversal to the situations. And also, I would also like to add that this sometimes leads to addiction, meaning that some of those people that have been hung on these drugs, they're not functioning properly. They can't think like a right member of the society. They need to be reorientated. They need to have an addiction facility or a space for them to kind of detoxify them and reintegrate them back to society. Um, Sometimes it could not be their fault, sometimes it could be, but the matter lies on each government trying to cater to the needs of the people.
What is the job of law enforcement? Because like you have mentioned, big companies are involved in this. So will a court case alone stem the tide?
Well, law enforcement has a very huge major role to play in all of this situation because they're at the first in line to, as a matter of fact, in the airport and the seaport where they have huge, you know, transactions and huge movements of goods and well, goods particularly, and these are points that these items transported from one country or from point A to point B, and that's where the law enforcement, working with other law enforcement agencies across board, will help to make sure that they're thoroughly inspected, and that way they can also find out and arrest or apprehend whoever is behind all of this illicit drugs.
All right, kunle falowo, Global Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for talking to us on this.
A pleasure.